She used to admire you, the way she looked at you when you walked into a room, the way she spoke about you to her friends, the way she treated your opinions like they mattered. Now she looks through you. Your words carry no weight. Your presence doesn't change the energy in the room. She argues with you about things she would never argue about with other men. Here's what you need to understand. Respect isn't given, it's triggered by a behavior most men avoid because they think it makes them the bad guy. But the men who understand this, they don't just get respect, they command it. And today, you're going to learn exactly how they do it. Here's the truth about female respect psychology that no one wants to tell you. Women don't respect men who need their approval. They respect men who have standards that exist with or without them. Think of respect like gravity. The moment you weaken your foundation, it disappears. Most men think respect comes from being nice, from being agreeable, from avoiding conflict. They're wrong. Respect comes from certainty, from boundaries, from emotional polarity. When you're predictable in your weakness, you become invisible. When you're predictable in your strength, you become magnetic. The difference isn't complicated, but it requires you to do something most men are terrified to do. Stop caring more about her comfort than your own standards. The first thing you need to understand, respect doesn't come from accommodation. It comes from consequence. You apologize for things that aren't your fault. You say sorry when you ask for what you need. You treat your own boundaries like suggestions. Every time you apologize for having standards, you're teaching her that your standards don't matter. Think about the last time you had a disagreement. Did you back down to keep the peace? Did you compromise on something important to you just to avoid her being upset? Here's what happened in her mind. His standards are flexible, which means they're not really standards at all. The men she respects, they don't apologize for having expectations. They don't negotiate their non-negotiables. They say what they mean what they say, and they don't explain themselves to death. Until you stop apologizing for who you are, she'll never respect who you're trying to become. Second, and this is where most men lose their power, respect doesn't come from approval seeking. It comes from authentic self-expression. You change your opinion based on her mood. You agree with things you don't believe. You bite your tongue when you should speak up. You're so afraid of her disapproval that you've disappeared. Here's the psychological reality. When you need her to like everything about you, she respects nothing about you. The men who command respect, they're comfortable being disliked for their authentic positions. They don't need her validation to know they're right. They don't need her agreement to maintain their stance. They understand something you've forgotten. Respect is born in the space between people, not in the agreement between them. The moment you stop needing her approval is the moment she starts seeking yours. Third, and this might be the hardest pill to swallow, respect doesn't come from tolerance. It comes from boundaries with teeth. She interrupts you mid-sentence. You keep talking to her like nothing happened. She dismisses your feelings. You try harder to explain them. She disrespects you in front of others. You pretend it didn't happen to avoid a scene. Every time you ignore disrespect, you're training her to disrespect you more. Here's what you need to understand. Boundaries without consequences aren't boundaries. They're suggestions. The men she respects, they don't tolerate disrespect, period. They don't yell. They don't argue. They don't explain why disrespect is wrong. They simply remove their presence, their energy, their attention. Until you show her there's a cost to disrespecting you, she'll never stop paying it. Fourth, and this is where leadership begins. Respect doesn't come from consensus. It comes from leadership. You ask her opinion on everything, where to go, what to do, how to handle situations. You think you're being considerate. You're actually being weak. Here's the reality. She doesn't want to make every decision. She wants to trust that you can make good decisions. When you constantly defer to her, you're forcing her into the masculine role. And when she's in the masculine role, she can't respect you in the feminine role. The men who command respect, they lead with decisions. They gather input. They consider her perspective. But they don't abdicate their responsibility to choose. They understand that leadership isn't about being controlling. It's about being decisive. The moment you stop asking for permission to lead is the moment she starts following your lead. Fifth, and this changes everything about how she sees you. Respect doesn't come from availability. It comes from scarcity. You drop everything when she calls. You cancel plans with friends to spend time with her. You're always available, always accommodating, always there. You think this shows love. It shows desperation. Here's the psychological truth. What's always available becomes valueless. When you have no life outside of her, you become an extension of her life instead of an addition to it. The men she respects, they have lives, goals, and purposes that exist independent of her. They make time for her because they choose to, not because they have nothing better to do. They understand that respect is earned through scarcity, not abundance. The moment you start valuing your time is the moment she starts valuing your presence. Here's what you need to understand about respect. It's not something you can negotiate. It's not something you can earn through good behavior. It's not something you can beg for or convince someone to give you. Respect is a natural response to strength, to certainty, to boundaries, to standards. When you stop trying to earn respect and start commanding it, everything changes. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be flawless. You don't have to be someone you're not. You just have to be someone who respects himself enough to require respect from others. The woman in your life is watching. She's testing. She's seeing if you'll hold your ground or if you'll crumble under pressure. Every interaction is a choice. Will you prioritize her comfort or your standards? Will you seek her approval or trust your own judgment? Will you tolerate disrespect or require respect? The men who command respect have made their choice. They've chosen to be the type of man whose standards are non-negotiable, whose boundaries are unshakable, whose presence commands attention and respect, not because they're demanding it, but because they're embodying it. Be the man whose standards command respect, not the man who begs for it, because respect isn't given to those who need it most. It's given to those who require it least. And the moment you stop needing her respect is the moment you start earning it.